And I'd like to introduce Dr. Chen, and he's going to talk about his class.
Thank you, Dr. Wu. I need to take time up. Hello. Sorry for the delay, but anyway, so shall we kind of start the CPSC 542 verification and validation class introduction. All right, so I don't know whether you have checked your Canvas already, but anyway, so our class is online already. And also for section 51 students, I moved everyone to section 50 already, so you can kind of access the section 50 directly without using the section 51. Save me some time, otherwise I have to duplicate the 6 to the section 51. But anyway, so that pretty much is the whole course structure right there already. So the first thing is I just want to make sure that everyone is aware of the arrangement of the class. I kind of pose all the way to, this is my instructor view, so let me kind of switch to the student view. All right, so in terms of students, you can see that you can see week 1, week 2, week 3, week 4, week 5. And the reason I want to kind of close some kind of 4 or 5 weeks ahead of time is so that we can have, or you can have lead time. Right? In our profession, it seems to me that one of the most important habits you need to have is, to have lead time so that you don't end up with doing things just 1 day, 1 hour before the deadline. Right? And also you need to figure out how to force yourself to do this. Everybody procrastinates in a sense, right? I procrastinate myself. It's a lifelong type of discipline type of things. One way I figure out to push myself a little bit is, well, for example, I kind of published a deadline for my class already, so I have to meet those deadlines myself. So that's one way to somehow to keep myself from procrastinating. All right. I do have this welcome message there, so let's open up and take a look. So basically, I wish everyone an enjoyable and productive semester. I kind of put the enjoyable in front of productive. Well, it turns out that I myself kind of reached the last leg of my career before the this midterm workshop. Several faculty members are kind of chatting about the retirement. It turns out that our program, this is 20 years.
Yeah. You know that we reached 20 years of anniversary of this program. We started this program in 2002, now it's 2022.
Yeah.
So this program is 20 years old.
Yeah, 20 years old, and then it's a highly successful program, and we have all these original members still around. And thank them for their enthusiasm and then also the dedication. We have a very successful program. Every year we have some kind of this program evaluation by the U.S. News and World News and something like that. Anyway, they publish this ranking stuff. And I kind of remember that one time we are one place ahead of a U.S. UCLA. That was our happiest moment. Now I guess we are number 17, 16 or something like that. I don't know.
Number 16 nationwide, but California number 3.
California number 3. UCLA, I guess.
We started trying to beat them, but it's still hard.
They are big
resources.
Tremendous resources. And then USC, I guess they are number 1, number 2. Come on, it's hard for us to compete with them. But we are there. We are there. But anyway, but But my point is that for you guys, you will have a very long career. So one of the important things is try not to use the homework, try not to use this deadline to drive yourself. It's just too hard. Okay? Try to find some kind of passion. That means you enjoy, you have this endless type of energy simply because you do not use stress as a way to drive yourself. In the end, I mean, sometimes you do need to have some stress to push yourself a little bit harder, but don't use that one as the long-term one or the only one. You won't work. Before you reach this successful goal, you probably die ahead of that. Okay. But anyway, I hope that everyone have a productive semester. And then in my class, I typically use FAQ as a way to explain things, to anticipate what are the coming things. And then, sure enough, if you have additional questions, you can actually let me know. Then I will kind of but no. So anyway, so those are some of the possible question and answer I can come up with, so that especially for this asynchronous type of format, right? This direct interaction is not the main way of communication. To have an FAQ probably is an easy way to go. All right, so I appreciate that you kind of go through that. All right. And then the next things I want to group, the next thing is let's take a look at your syllabus. Okay, syllabus pretty much it gives you all the major important information already. My name is Ning Chen. If you are interested in my campus location, is computer science program, 5th Pro, and then this is my office hour this semester. I will maintain the Zoom during my office hour, so obviously you don't want to try here, right? If not necessarily, simply because the parking situation is not that good at all. But anyway, so during my office hours, I will open up my link, Zoom link, and then Zoom link's ID is over here. All right, so if you cannot make it during my office hour, don't worry. Simply contact me, and then we'll figure out a way to have a real-time conversation. Typically, I would say, if possible, can you give me your cell phone number, and then the best time to call you. I would just call you. All right, because I don't want to play this ping pong game type of things. You send me an email, and then I say you want, blah, blah, blah. It's very difficult. It's not a very efficient way of solving, any kind of issues. All right. And then we do have some kind of officially stated learning goal, for example, theory, on this testing, verification, validation, that kind of things, testing method tools, and so on and so forth. Right? So the verification, validation, I would say that is just one part of the software testing. And in this class, although the title of the class is verification validation, but we kind of cover more than that. Okay? So I hope that can give you a kind of top-level concept about this field. Software testing, I kind of consider that is this class is one of the classes that somehow has an industry behind that. Right? Some of the classes is kind of general concept or very important fundamental type of things. They do not have some kind of a corresponding industry behind it. All right? But this particular class software testing does have an industry or so-called career path behind. Right? Then when you go through the class, I hope that I can kind of expand that a little bit more in detail. Right? Basically, for young people, when you start your career, you have several major career paths. Okay, for example, you want to be a developer, nothing wrong with that one, and then I highly recommend everyone to claim that, hey, I'm a good developer, right? In addition to that, I kind of encourage you, not require you, maybe if you like this industry, you may want to also claim that, hey, I'm a very good software tester too. Okay, you wear two hats, all right? Right, and then later on, I will explain why. But anyway, so in this class, hopefully that I can kind of give you a high-level overview of the whole thing about what's going on, what are the important stuff in this field. But I also want to include some low-level stuff. All right, all the popular tools in the industry now, all the popular frameworks used by practitioners in the industry, so that you have a taste of it. And the reason for that one is in the university setting, yes, we want to talk about theory too. But on the other hand, we cannot just live like in the ivory tower type of things, right? That kind of thing, and then without knowing what's going on outside, simply because our program is a professional program. Career is a very important part of that. Okay, so that's the reason why in this class I also want to kind of lower down our focus all the way from the very high level one, kind of zoom to the ground level, so to speak, right? So that you can also know what's going on at the hands-on kind of level, so that you can zoom in and zoom out. Especially that one is very important, especially when you start your career. All right, and then the textbook we use is this one. However, I do have a lot of other source of study or reading in addition to this one. This one is kind of well organized one, however it's a little bit older. Actually, I tried to write my own textbook. I probably will share that my own writing with you as a kind of beta version, alpha version of the textbook, and so that you can kind of, as an optional reading if you're interested. So we do have other materials. Other materials are available freely on the internet, and then later on you will see that. Okay. So that is the kind of arrangement I have. I also came up with kind of a detailed schedule, although still tentative, simply because I kind of plan to add more stuff to it. Sorry for that, but anyway. I came up with this detailed weekly schedule already with all the assignment assigned already with the due date and time. Okay. Again, the idea is so that everyone has some kind of lead time. You know exactly when things need to be done. All right. So this is good practice for you and also good practice for me. Right? For example, we have an incoming assignment. It's a very easy one, acknowledgement, and also forming the group, that kind of thing. All right, and then next week we have one module and then a discussion, and then so on and so forth. Right? And we also have some kind of a little bit bigger assignment. I call that essay and presentation. For example, this one, essay. software testing job in California and their required skill sets. So I've kind of laid out that already. You may kind of wonder, do I know, or can we have the exact content of these details of the assignments ahead of time? It turns out yes. Later on, you can see that I kind of lay out all the essay, all the assignment together, presentation, group project, and then discussion topic, everything's right there already. Okay, so pretty much you have, I won't say 100%, but pretty much 99% of the requirement for the whole class already on the first day of the class. Okay. And the way to do that, the reason for me to do that is so that everybody can be on the same page right from the beginning of the day one of the class. All right, so let's see, assignment, and then maybe I can talk about this software testing job, right? According to some prior research work done, it turns out that some people kind of feel that for every $1 spent in the software development, and maintenance and testing, that kind of thing all together, over 50 cents eventually is spent in the software testing field. Okay. Over the lifetime of the software product. Okay. If you kind of follow the money flow, there's a so-called money flow theory that if you need water, your best strategy probably isn't live nearby the river. Okay, so you have better chance to get the water. You don't have to live a couple miles away from the river. Okay? So if you kind of believe that theory, then you look at the whole thing software industry. Oh, okay, more than 50%, 50 cents of every $1 kind of spent on the software testing. We move the motion detector, the infrared heat. Okay. Anyway, so if you follow the money theory, then you say, well, maybe that is a career path I need to consider. Even in the eventually, it's well, I don't like it, but basically, initially, when you're young, I still kind of encourage you, hey, I'm trying to claim that I know what's going on in the software testing. I am a good tester. I am good as a QA guy, software quality assurance team member. All right, and so the first assignment over there asks you to survey the marketplace, okay, so that you have first-hand understanding of what's going on in the field. Right? That's very easy to do. You go to the Nansen.com, Indeed.com, all those popular sites, to type in the software tester SQA job, right? Then you will come all kind of listing over there, right? And then you go in to see what are the required skill set to see whether your resume fit into their profile. All right. If you don't, but that's fine, no problem. You still have time to build your resume that way. Okay. And then you can survey the market value of those positions, so that you can kind of have a good idea about the compensation paid in that section of the industry. And that's one thing. And then I also kind of encourage you to have a little bit long-term thinking. Okay, in your career, yes, you want to be a very good software developer. Even now, I still pay great attention to the software development. But on the other hand, I also pay attention to the software testing. Right? One thing is based on that money theory. The second one is you have to understand that your time is limited, all right? And your time is money, although you're quite young at this point, all right? But you may not have a lot of money to invest in the stock market. Don't do that, it's too dangerous now, okay? But on the other hand, you do have a lot of hours, right? You are energetic, you can kind of just, sit time for 10 hours, 12 hours, 13 hours a day. I cannot do that, all right? But you still do have a lot of hours to invest in your career. So pay attention to the ROI, return on investment. So why I talk about this? Because in general, the development world, the ROI in general is a little bit low. Why? Because of the advancement of the technology. Every 5, 10 years, all of a sudden everything changes. Have you noticed? Okay. Yeah. And then somehow the development industry behaves like a fashion industry. Have you noticed? Every year they have a new thing comes out, and then your whole thing just a lady's skirt. Yeah. One time it's very short, then it's become longer, and then 10 years later, it becomes so short again. You just kind of wonder why the industry does that. I guess that they want you to dump all your old clothes and buy a a complete new one. Yeah. Okay, right. And then you look at technology. Do you feel that it's kind of similar? All right. Anyway, so be aware that some of your investment in terms of development may get obsolete soon. Unfortunately, that's just the behavior of the industry. Okay. If you are doing enough, very good before the class area, I'm not going to discuss that one. If you are very good, you always position yourself at the front of this wave. Imagine that you do this wave surfing. If you're always at the front end of the wave, you kind of speed up, perfectly, okay, all the time. So nothing wrong with that one. But some of you, for your personal reason or in some way that you decide not to do that, sometimes it's quite dangerous, all right? Because you cannot catch the next bandwagon, you're doomed. Okay. All right. But anyways, I still encourage you that pay attention to development. Even I, reaching the last in my career, I still pay attention to development because you want to, in a position that people look at you, then you feel strong. Okay, I know what you're talking about. Okay, if necessary, I can go down to the ground level, do all the programming part myself. Okay, so that is not that difficult to maintain. But in terms of career, if you look at the software quality assurance industry, right, things won't change too much. Right? So in terms of ROI, my estimation or my view on that one is that the return of the ROI value will be higher. All right, and also you probably realize that the quality issue sometimes is more related to the management issue. Okay, so you're closer to the management level of the company, of the organization. All right, so if you want to build your career all the way toward the management level, all right, you may want to consider that at least you are aware of the quality issue, or you have some kind of good training background in terms of quality, software quality. So if you look at the whole thing from this perspective, in this class it will become kind of interesting. Okay, all right. Okay, all right, and then you can see that I put a lot of those black box, white box, you guys probably heard that already, and then there's a lot of different type of test the testing skill, testing methods. Okay. Basically, in this field, we have kind of two major parts. Right? One part is the hands-on technology type of things. That means, people give you a piece of software. How do you, come up with some kind of way to test the software? There's a lot of different type of way to test the software under test, right? And we cover those parts. That's one part. It turns out that the IEEE came up with a standard. A standard is a 29119. It turns out we will have that, okay, in the class. That's part of the class discussion. And also, I wrote a paper on that too. Okay? I will show you my paper later part of the semester. But anyway, so that standard pretty much tells you all the major hands-on testing techniques or methods already. That's one part. Okay. So we will learn that part. But on the other hand, there is another very big part. Okay. And that big part is, how do you approach this overall testing, overall quality at the high level? Yeah, you can do this, very detailed work here and there. But that is not enough, all right? For your long-term career, if you want to rise up to the management level type of things, or you want to be a project lead, or architect, or CTO, there's a little bit higher, then you want to have this high-level view on the whole thing. So the high-level view on the testing is not going to be restricted to the methods only, right? So that's the reason why in software engineering we talk about processes. Well, how do you do things step by step, and then based on the prior knowledge or prior experience, that probably is a good way to do. Although best practice, Dr. Kang kind of mentioned, but we still use that term from time to time. Right? I think because based on experience, we know that in most cases, maybe that is the way to go because the success rate probably is higher. Okay, that kind of thing. So the second part of the whole thing is, how do you look at this software testing at this high level? Can you come up with a story? Can you come up with some kind of justification, articulation to support whatever you plan to do? All right, and that part becomes even more important part than the technique itself. Why? Because the technique is kind of fixed. You want to do the black box testing, you do this, you do that, here's a tool, then there's a step 1, step 2, step 3. Everyone follows that one. 99% of people will come up with the identical result. Okay, right? You just follow the step and then same tool, same procedure. As long as you pay attention to that, most people will come up with exactly the same result. Okay, nothing wrong with that. On the other hand, as I mentioned, at the organization level, then you decide to do this, then how come it will work, or how come in the end it benefit the user, the organization, the employee, the real bosses, the investor, that kind of thing. You can see that that area is a gray area. All right, no one can guarantee. All right. So how do we do this? Someone needs to figure out one way to go, and then everybody kind of say, hey, that probably is a good way to go. Then everyone is on board, so to speak. You don't want to have this internal division within your team because you say, hey, that's the way to go. And the other guy say, no, I don't think so. Okay. When you have this internal disagreement, even your approach is correct, in the end still it's going to fail simply because not everybody is on board. All right. So then what do? That means you need to have this skill set that you can articulate the correct way or the one you promote. You need to articulate to your team, to your management level by explaining that I do have a good reason, and here is a logical explanation of my reasons. Okay? And so that articulation skill is extremely important, not just in software testing, verification, validation, no. In this software engineering field, that actually is the most valuable part. Okay? And this is the second year, you probably realize that software engineering is not a hard science. Okay? Software engineering is really soft. Okay? You really don't have, a fixed solution for all the different type of problems. Okay? It actually depends. It depends. And also, it depends on the environment, the situation you face. Also, it depends whether you have the ability to come up with your way or your selection of the way. And you can kind of convince your team member so that they come on board. All right? If they cannot come on board, forget it. Even you always correct, it won't work. Okay? All right? So that part actually, I think it's more important than the very straightforward techniques. We still need to, learn the technique and know how to use the techniques, because that is the basis for the employment. Okay. So that you know. But in addition to that, you need to develop that. Okay. So in all my assignment, I kind of try to emphasize that. Okay. Don't just buy things directly from the textbook, directly from the internet, directly from your professor, Ning. Okay. Try to say, hey, okay, we have this, and here is my view. Even sometimes your view is not that correct, that's fine, it's a good practice. You need to come up with your own view, your own insights. I use the word insights. Okay. And your way of articulation. I think that is a more valuable type of training. Okay. I kind of encourage you to do that. And the final is almost 100% focusing on that. I want to see your way of looking at this issue, your way of explanation. Okay. And also, believe it or not, when you kind of have this deeper thinking of how do I articulate, how do I convince other guys to see my perspective. During that process, you somehow imprint that understanding into your own mindset. Okay, it's not just I read it from somewhere. Okay, you kind of internalize that external knowledge into your internal understanding. Okay, and believe it or not, people can easily feel that. Okay. If you only know that how do I repeat whatever people say, come on, people kind of look you through, okay, I know that you read that. That's it. Come on, I can read that myself too. But if you internalize that one, for example, Dr. Kang, when you see his way of expressing, things, he kind of internalize some of the things, right? You kind of feel that, okay? The same thing will happen to you if you have that kind of training. People can feel that, hey, you truly understand something, you internalize that knowledge. And then that's the way to build your career in a way, right? So hopefully we can have this, productive semester that way. All right, and then another thing I want to mention that you can see that if you look at the schedule here, we have this agile, the buzzword over there. we have from time to time the standard, that's typically there is another camp, okay, that's not in the agile camp, okay, and so on and so forth. So I want to mention that in the testing business, okay, basically you may have two camps, all right, and most of the industry businesses out there, they kind of fall into in my view, the so-called agile. Okay, why? Because in terms of dollar sign, the web business somehow generates more money, more dollars. Okay, or at least they attract more attention. Okay, because stock market or something like that, right? There's Google, there's Microsoft, Apple, blah blah blah, all those things. Okay, and then in that sector of the business, agile obviously is the way to go, simply because the internet is severe competition. People want to see the new things most of the time, so they have to react to these frequent changes. Right? That's essence of this so-called agile. Right? But don't forget that we still have defense industry, we still have this traditional industry, we still have this aerospace industry. And we are talking about another way to call that as some people say, oh, this is traditional way or this theoretical way. No. Recently, hello, okay. Recently, I read another book from the Professor Fox and Patterson. Patterson is a gentleman who won this 2017 Turing Award. All right. Turing Award is like a Nobel Prize in our industry. Okay, but anyway, he kind of contributed a lot in this microprocessor architecture. But anyway, in this book, they use the term to explain this the other camp. It's called plan. You have long-term plan, testing plan, and document. In this camp, plan and document. We also want to cover the plan and document approach. That means you have a long-term plan. You have a testing plan, you have this development plan, you have requirement plan, blah, blah, blah. And then you document. Okay. All right. Which one is the absolute correct one? No, the question is the wrong question. Okay. In this world, very few things are totally black and totally white. Okay, most of the things are actually in between. Right? Okay, whether you want to use this agile completely, or you kind of want to have this plan and document approach, is up to you. In your organization, suppose you are in that position, or you are a team member, you can kind of mention that. Right? But in this class, we actually cover both. Agile and plan and documents, right? So that you can see things, see the whole world of test software testing as a whole, and then you form your own opinions, right? Or you can argue something this way or that way, so you know the full spectrum of the knowledge. I think that's more important. Okay. All right, so we do have this agile kind of fancy or the popular approach, and also we have this traditional plan and documents approach. All right, now it's 2:30. All right, so give me a few more minutes. And obviously, this agile is kind of more popular, so I will spend more little time adding, in addition to this thing, okay, because I look at the original plan, well, because recently I spent a little time doing this agile stuff, and I would like to add that to the course content later on. For example, one of them is behavior-driven development. And although you say, hey, this is behavior-driven development, it's not a testing, how come we want to cover that one? Well, simply because that this behavior-driven development end up with some kind of user stories, all right? And when you have a user story, and we do have this wonderful tools that somehow, not 100% automatically, but pretty high level of automation, you can kind of transfer or translate this high level user stories all the way to requirements. Okay, and once you have a requirement, and again, you know, one way or the other, and at least the whole industry is moving toward that direction, you can have test cases from the requirement. All right, and once you have your test cases, then people say that, okay, yes, we have test cases set up already, so we can kind of manage this software development that way. Hello, we have all the test cases here. Developers, please come up with your development to pass all those test cases. All right. So it turns out, you know, that's the so-called test-driven development (TDD). All right. And then BDD is one variant of the TDD. All right. So that's the reason why it drives from the top all the way to the development, and then testing is part of the key component or key sector of this chain. All right. And that's the reason why I want to cover that. Okay. That's a kind of interesting development, or the progress in industry. The other thing I kind of thought about that one, in the past, sometimes the software is driven by developers. Okay, although developers say, oh, okay, let me talk to the user. But they are in this higher position, hey, user, you know nothing about the software. I'm kind of polite to show up to listen to your need, all right? And then I will come back based on my, highly technical understanding of software to decide what I want to do. Okay. You are the second class in there's a whole business. Okay, I'm the guy who calls the shot because you know nothing about the software. All right. Although we try to, in some sense, pretend that okay, you're the boss, but in some way we kind of behave that hey, we are the technical guy, we are the king of the world, that kind of thing. But the other day I look at the BDD, maybe later on the things change. Okay. Once there's a fully automated tool kind of show up in the marketplace, all right, and then the end user come up with a user story, all of a sudden she'll have all the test cases show up, all right, and then it's very hard for the developers to say that, oh, I cannot do this, I cannot do that, come on, develop to pass the test cases, then that's your job. Anyway, so in some sense, this type of things enables them to have more say in the whole ecosystem. Right? That would be a very interesting one. But anyway, so for you guys, your long-term strategy is try to move up in this ecosystem. You want to move into the high value level. Instead, you do the low value thing. Because at that time, if the low value, you will face a global competition on the low level. the demand and supply situation will be different, and sure enough, your case situation will be different. So try to move up, okay? And also another thing, very interesting things, you have two ways to make your bugs. One's your fingers, another one is with your mouse. Believe me, using mouse you make more and easier. All right. So that kind of brings this back to this articulation. You do have your own thinking, all right? And so on and so forth. But in our class, we actually emphasize both. Learn by doing. One thing, we will, for example, do the PyTest, BDD, keyword-driven testing, robot framework, that kind of thing. On the other hand, I also encourage people to do, I call that as learn by thinking. Think. Alright, so, for example, in one of the final question, maybe, oh, I have 3 different terms. Well, what do you think? How come we have those terms? Why did the industry come with those terms? You need to think. You need to read, but just don't read alone. Try to take the information from other people and then think about that. Do you agree? How come you do not agree? If you do not agree, why? Okay. And so on and so forth. That pretty much is the things, I mean, philosophically, how do I view this whole class, right? So I do have this complete grading policy there, distribution, all the assignments there. Okay, and every assignment comes with some question and answer, so that you have some kind of starting points right away. All right, so, and I probably want to talk about a little bit about this evaluation criteria for formal essays, right? So, eventually, this is inciting and insights. How do you express your whole opinion? Obviously, it's an open-ended question. There's no fixed answer. And also because the nature of this class, this program is online program. Okay, so it's kind of meaningless to have some kind of multiple choice problem or fill out a blank, that kind of thing. Okay, I don't think that's the way to go. And also, we don't want to hire this expensive exam proctors to set up a video, kind of watch you like a hawk. Okay. So I kind of really prefer, and also because this is encouraging learn by thinking. So my test is, open-ended question. Okay, so everybody's answer is a bit different. And then that leads to one question. Hey, you say, hey, my answer is perfect, correct. How come you give me not perfect, correct, blah, blah, blah. In order to resolve that dispute, so I kind of use the social scientists, their way of evaluating the performance. So please take a look at that one, because that social scientists, they kind of study this thing all the time. Okay, they can view your way of expression to determine, your level of knowledge, level of understanding. Right? Okay, that pretty much is those things I want to cover. All right, and sure enough, the real content of class, as you start listen to my lecture, you should get it. That pretty much concludes my overall view of the whole class in terms of from the top level market and also philosophical level, and then all the way down to the hands-on type of things. All right, do you have any questions? All right.